Hello and welcome back to the podcast, We Are Selling. Today, I have an exciting story and journey of a very famous Australian real estate success story. And I'll start from the beginning. Many years ago, I was flown into South Australia to do a super coach workshop for a group of Ray White officers. And for those of you that came through that work, they were always done in a U-shape. There's about 20 people in the room. Those 20 people are quite elite, the best at what they do, and looking for that progression. And in this wonderful room one day, I met Valerie Timms, and great questions, good implementation, and she was doing incredibly well as a real estate salesperson. She then went on to open her own brand, and there's reasons for that, and that brand, Timms Real Estate, was also featured about 2 or 3 years ago when I did the incredible office walkthrough of the property. From there, one of the hardest things to do in real estate, if you're a business owner and a principal, is who could be interested in my business if I wanted to progress on again and exit the business, yet stay within the industry. And Owens Casserly were the acquirer of Timms Real Estate, and then Valerie went on to do the leadership, management, and still list and sell real estate. But today we're going to be catching up with Val because she's got many things on her plate coming through, and she joins us today. Valerie Timms, welcome to the program.
Hi, Lee. Thank you so much. What a beautiful introduction that was. It's so wonderful to be here, and I really appreciate you having me on your podcast.
I have followed your work. You've spoken at conferences for me before, and today we'll be announcing some of the future things that you're doing. But let's get straight into it. Many years ago, and I don't know how many years ago, but you wrote a great little book, a great little read about the 7 foundations for success in real estate sales. And this book was a practical, values-driven guide to long-term success in sales and business, rather than focusing on the tools and tactics that people do. Take us into the 7 foundations for success in real estate sales and why you actually did that. And we'll start with the why first.
I guess in some way, I just love to coach and mentor. I have been through lots of things in my real estate career and I've made many mistakes. And I guess my hope is that with sharing some of the things that I've learned through that time, that I can maybe help others to not make the sort of mistakes that I have certainly made in this business. And that was really it. It was just kind of a give back to ensure that I was doing as much as I can to assist others in the industry.
Well, let's look at the 7 foundations at a glance. Number 1 was know your alternative using motivation and clarity to eliminate retreat. Give us the answers and the background behind foundation number 1.
If I can give you a short story that goes behind that, and in which you'll mention later, I'm sure, my new book that is going to be coming out, I talk about some of the jobs and roles that I had prior to real estate. And one of those was in the meatworks. And my final day before I resigned was pulling kidneys out of freshly skinned sheep as they were coming down the line, hanging on a hook. And that was, pretty gross and disgusting. I remember a moment standing on the doorstep of a gentleman's house. I was door knocking. I was in my first 6 months in real estate. It was really bad weather, but I was determined. He just slammed his door in my face and told me to bleep off. And the heavens came down and, rain. I couldn't get back to my car and I just had to stand under his porch for a little while until I was prepared to go back to my car while he was glaring at me through his lounge room window. And what went through my head was, I just can't do this. Like, I don't want to be doing this. This is not for me. And then I kind of thought about all those really crappy jobs I'd had prior to, and I knew that I didn't actually have an alternative that was anything positive. I was going to be going back to dead-end jobs, no pay and no road to success. So I think if you know your alternative, if it's a great alternative, well, you can exit real estate and that's all good. But if you know that this is for you, it's a really great motivator just to do the hard things and keep on at it, even when you feel like you just want to quit.
Love that. It's like when someone says, what's your backup plan? There isn't one. This is it. I've got to make it work. I was speaking on something else the other day where they were saying, oh, I tried that, it didn't work. And I think, yeah, you tried that, but you didn't get it to work. There is a difference in those two thoughts, which brings us to foundation number 2, practice persistence, daily discipline, structure, and consistent action. Valerie, this is one of your great repetitive skills. Take us into number 2.
When I first started in real estate, I had a manager who, we sat down and, we were setting goals and, he basically said to me, what's your number one goal? And I said, well, I want to be the number one salesperson in Ray White. And there was a silence and, he started laughing at me. And I kind of giggled as well because I thought, I don't know what's so funny about that. And then he said to me, look, let's pick a realistic goal. That's probably not realistic. So I was a little bit hurt, but I thought, okay, fair enough. We can play this game. I then set different targets. And what I did from there was just practice persistence. He would pack up at 6:00 and go home and, say, are you packing up? And I'd say, not quite yet. I've just got a couple more things I have to do. And I would proceed to make another 2 hours of phone calls. And those 2 hours, I did, probably 3 nights to 4 nights a week, made the difference. And within a year and a half, I was nominated for Rookie of the Year for Ray White. And within 2 years, I'd become their number one salesperson. So I know a little bit about practicing persistence, and I just wanted to share that.
That's absolutely brilliant. And just while we're on this particular foundational point, being number 2, what do you feel you did so well in the structure side, Valerie, that allowed you to break through where other agents don't? They're all over the shop, they're everywhere, they're just throwing hours at the problem. What was your structural side that, if you had to nominate one structure thing that you did that allowed you to do that?
Well, I think the first structure is inside your head, Lee, and that is to stay out of the drama. There's a lot of drama in any office workplace, in any business, in any, out there in the world. I think you've just got to stay out of the drama as a first mindset structure. But then if we look at actual day-to-day structure, it's really about making sure that you know what your intentions are for the day. It's very easy to shuffle paper. And I used to have a sign up in front of me on my desk that said, is this making you money? And I would find myself shuffling paper. As soon as I saw that sign, I would just put that all away and pick up the phone and start dialing. So I think having a structured, knowing what your intentions are for the day, what outcomes are you looking for, having those on a checklist, and then structuring your calendar so that you're prospecting our appointments.
Love it. Foundation number 3, competitive advantage, positioning yourself to stand out, especially early. What did you do?
In terms of competitive advantage, I think you've got to know what your skill sets are and what they aren't. I was positioned in an area like most agents are when they first start, where there's a couple of rock stars in the suburb, and they were a lot older than me, very established, had been in the marketplace for 25 years. And it was really hard to win business from them. So there's a few things I did. Number one, once again, the mindset structure. I had to change my thinking. Sometimes I go into a lounge room and feel like a bit of a loser. Like, oh, how am I going to win against these people? This is impossible. I'm young. I'm inexperienced. Why would they choose me? Once I changed my mindset to, if I don't list this property, these agents are going to list their property, and I know they're not going to work as hard for them as I will, and I know they won't get the right price. So I really kind of in my mind put on my Wonder Woman cape and, I was in there to save them. So that was one thing, but also I think I just outmarketed them. I outperformed them. I had some really quirky marketing. I focused on good old-fashioned service. I employed my dad as my PA in the first year and a half because he'd been in real estate and he was great at administration. So we were the first ones to have an email database. So we're talking a long time ago, Lee. I know it's all normal now, but so we were the first ones to have what we called the Sneak Preview Club, the SPC. And, we were servicing buyers by sending them emails with all our up-to-date listings. So I think I embraced the new technology, which I've always done, but from day one. And I just outperformed them. I outmarketed them. I out-phone called them. I just outdid them on every level. And in the lounge room, the key was really to saying, hey, I know they've got more experience, but I've got something to prove and they don't. Who do you think is going to work harder for you?
What a beautiful angle, and what a great signal to send. And it comes under that very famous saying off this show, nothing real can be threatened. If you've done the work, you've done the effort, and you're prepared to work harder, it's amazing how many people pick up on that and think, yeah, I'm not after the superstar. I want someone who superglues themselves to the property, which connects us to a really interesting part of foundation number 4 here. Master your mistakes, turning failure into learning and experience. Now, as a connection point, Val, you've got a book coming out this year called Roller Coaster. And I've been reviewing that book. It's absolutely amazing and very raw around your mistakes. Let's connect the book to number 4. Take us into it. What have you learned from this?
Thank you, Lee, for your kind words. It's always, Brené Brown, The Art of Being Vulnerable. I felt very vulnerable sending you those first 2 parts of the book. So I really appreciate that you've said nice things about it. And you did say to me, Val, you can't read the label from inside the jar. And I really appreciate that. That's really stuck with me. Mastering your mistakes. Look, I've made a lot of mistakes in this business, and trust me, not all the mistakes are going to be in the book. But the ones that I really want to probably talk to are, once you've made a mistake, don't go back. Like sometimes we make the mistake twice. I think the idea is to avoid doing that where you possibly can. I mean, I had one example, it's a chapter in the book called Tool of the Week where it was my first media interview and I was so excited because this newspaper in Adelaide was going to feature me and my conversation around the suburb that I was working in, Christie's Beach. And I was so excited and thinking, oh, this is so great. The profile is going to be awesome. So I did this phone interview completely clueless. The interviewer asked me the question. The Christie's Beach, had a reputation for being lower socioeconomic demographic. It was a little bit rough. I know because I went to the high school there. And she basically said, but, hasn't Christie's Beach been called feral before? And I stupidly said, oh, goodness, no, people might have called Christie's Beach feral in the past, but it's a completely great up-and-coming suburb. There's a lot of development. It's a great beach, close to wineries, et cetera, et cetera. I'm building it up thinking, yep, this is going to be great. So the paper comes out. I read the article and it's quoted, Mrs. Timms has said that Christie's Beach used to be feral in the past, but it is now an up-and-coming suburb. Now, that is what I said, but that isn't what I said, right? And this is what can happen sometimes with media. And this escalated. I thought, no, it'll be fine. I had a few phone calls. I had a few messages. One of my top salespeople walked into the office on Monday shaking his head. He said, even my dad's disappointed in that article. And I'm like, I don't even really know your dad, but your dad's disappointed in the article. And then my husband at the time called me and he said, are you listening to the radio? He's driving the kids to school. And I said, no. And he said, well, guess what? You're Triple M's Tool of the Week. They are quoting you on the radio saying good luck to Valerie trying to sell houses in her suburb when she's just called them all feral.
Wow.
So
that's pretty heavy.
It was pretty heavy. But, I guess the thing about that is everything's figure outable. I died for a couple of days. I think I've, cried into a pillow and, tried to put a bag over my head and, erase myself. But once I kind of thought, look, it's not the end of the world. I put out some public statements. I sent emails to all my database and letters. I put, an article in the paper saying I love Christie's Beach. Look, I've been misquoted. I'm sorry. It wasn't what I actually said. And it was a blip. And within a few weeks, nobody was even talking about it because there was fresh news. There was probably a lawyer who was tool of the week, or a car salesperson, or someone else, or a politician. So these things do blow over, but I have definitely learnt to be very, very careful when I'm doing media statements.
Amazing. Now, number 5 in our wonderful list here is pick a realistic goal, ambitious yet lifestyle aligned targets.
You've got to work out what you want out of this business. And if you want to be a number one salesperson, then you should go for it, and also understand what it means to become a number one salesperson, because there is a bit of a lifestyle steal that happens there unless you really get it right. I certainly didn't. Like, I really burnt out after some years of being an elite performing salesperson because I didn't have the balance right. So I guess what I'd say is work out what you want, track it back to what you'd have to do daily. Does that work for you? Are you single with no kids, so you can just work as hard as you want as long as you're keeping some balance? Or do you, have partners to, consider? Do you have family to consider, kids to consider? What's actually going to work for you, and work towards a realistic target? Because the industry is so focused to the elite performer, the number one salesperson, the person who's all over everything. But there's a lot of really great salespeople who make good, decent money, and, they're doing great business, but they're not getting the accolades. So you've just got to consider which path you want to go down.
This is such an important part of today's interview. And I've mentioned this a few times lately as I see people chasing things, and then I ask, do you really understand what that means? And what I mean by that, Val, sometimes people say an amount of money. I say, okay, you want to earn that amount of money. Do you know what that takes? And are you prepared to do that? Because you can't just have one piece of it, the nice part. Success is about timing. Where you are in your life right now, are you allowed to be successful? And they go, what do you mean? Your partner, your lifestyle, everything you do, is that going to work? Because after doing the complete salesperson course for all these years, the amount of incredible, brave women who've come up to me in the break and said, Lee, I'm a single mum with 3 kids. Do you think I can do this? I have to take that moment and say, I think you have the skills to do whatever you want. Is the timing right for you to do this, or is there another option for you at this moment versus bursting a chip in trying to keep everything going? And Val, you've been connected to that in many ways. And when we look at this part of your life, and in the book, you're quite open about those times in your life that you've had to deal with and still be a top performing salesperson. What's your view on that?
Yeah, look, it's a real juggle. I kind of look back at that time. I wonder how I did it. I used to have a lot of people say to me, how do you do what you do? And I didn't think it was unusual at all. I guess it's kind of like the frog in the pot of water, isn't it? They don't jump out. It's too late. Like, the water heats up and the frog just doesn't realize that they're getting hotter and hotter. I think that's what can happen. You can just pile more and more things on top of yourself. What we need to realize is that we are not machines. We are human beings with a soul. We've got an incredible, complex body that we're living in. That isn't a machine. Sometimes the body does fail. You continue to pile stress upon yourself the way, that I did and many other people do. You're going to find eventually your adrenals are going to be completely shot. Things don't work the way they used to. And I think we've just got to be mindful of that. We've got to be mindful of our relationships and mindful of, how much time we're spending with our kids. And it's all great to be, an elite performer, but do your kids still like you? Does your partner still like you? Would you even spend time with them? I think it's really important to consider those things. And when you're setting up your real estate business or any business, that's got to be part of it. That's got to be part of the consideration. Otherwise, you could find yourself in very hot water.
And Val, one of those challenges, I don't want to use the word mistake, one of those challenges is, and it's been around forever, someone's a brilliant performing real estate sales professional, they've mastered that skill, and then they think my next step is I've got to have my own real estate office. And For most people, I'd say 75% to 80%, that is the wrong decision because it's a completely different profession. You're now in administration, cash flow, books. We can't pay the wages this month. All those things have nothing to do with selling real estate, and be careful of what you follow. The world's photocopying each other, but behind the scenes of some of those situations, it's not what you see. There's a lot of noise. Success is when you've got the choice of what you want to do. Now, you've got to pay the price, which brings us to number 6 of your wonderful 7 foundations here. Master efficiency, progress over perfection, avoid paralysis by analysis.
There's the usual things that we hear and they just don't go away and they still work particularly well. And I'm a big fan of the book called Savers by Hal Elrod. Savers is about your morning routine, and the S, I'll do the acronym. It's S for silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing, which is, journaling. And I think for holistic living, I think that's a really great way to start your day. It's not always realistic if you've got a toddler who's screaming at you at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I think there's got to be a balance there. I think, efficiency is about knowing what works and when. And I personally think I became the most efficient in what I was doing when I became a solo parent running a business. I had to be efficient. Like, I had to pick the kids up from school. Like, I had to be there to cook them dinner. I think once you're forced to really change up your routine and what you're doing because you have to, it makes you really think about, well, what was I doing before that had me working 12-hour days? Was I really being efficient with my time? Was I staying out of the drama? Did I go in with an absolute focus and put my blinkers on and get that job done and then get out of there? I think a lot of the time we can spend too much time in an office with people, talking with people, maybe doing jobs that aren't getting us where we need to be. And I think efficiency is so critical. And Lee, I was coaching someone just yesterday, and this is in a business that's outside of real estate, and they have this incredible business which sells product. They can add something to their website which will probably increase their revenue by about 4 times, so 4x revenue increase, but it's a really complex addition to the website. And their belief is that they're the only person that can do it. And therefore, for the last 4 years, this great idea that they've had hasn't been executed. One of the things I love to do with people is to actually get really curious and question, well, why are you the only person? Haven't we got about 8.3 billion people on this planet? There has to be someone else who can help you with this. So I think paralysis by analysis does stop us from mastering our efficiency. And I think when you get forced to be efficient, you'll be amazed at what you can do. Imagine if you just switched your mindset to force yourself to be efficient before you had to be, how many hours you could recoup in your day, week, and year.
Now, number 7, I absolutely love, and I'm going to let you just explain it. Get a donkey is foundation number 7.
This is a more recent addition to the book. Get a donkey stands for what is your thing outside of work that you just love. And I woke up one day a while ago, and this is last year, and I just thought, I've lived on acreage. I wasn't at the time. I lived on acreage. I've had horses as a teenager. I've had a cow. I've had alpacas. I've had sheep. I've had ponies. Chickens, everything. So I've never had a donkey, and I really, really like donkeys. But their videos come up on my feed and they're just so fun and personable and quirky and crazy. And I thought, I've got to sell my house because I want to go back to acreage because I want to get a donkey. And I have 2 donkeys actually, and they're miniatures and they're absolutely gorgeous. They're called Maple and Crumpet. And look, I think that is just an analogy for what is your thing. Is it surfing? Go get a surfboard. Like, is it parachuting? Go and learn to parachute. I had a salesperson once who wanted to fly planes, and he went out and learned how to fly planes. Like, is it learning to crochet? Whatever it is, like, go get some crochet hooks, go get a surfboard, get a donkey, whatever it is that's your passion. Don't forget that when we look at the wheel of life, and you look at, health, wealth, spirituality, relationships, there's also hobbies and passions on that wheel. And a lot of us forget about that. What is your hobby? What is your passion outside of work? And just make sure you get to go and do it.
Absolutely love it. Now, Val, that was wonderful. Thank you for taking us through the 7 foundations. Let's step into the future. The new book is coming out, Roller Coaster, and you've also got a brand new business. We might just catch up of where you are there. Salesperson, built your own company, sold that business, acquired by Owens Casserly, one of the great groups of this real estate world. And now you're about to step into my wonderful world of coaching, mentoring, speaking. Take us into your new business.
Great. Okay. Well, my new business is named after me, Valerie Timms. So likely Woodward, ValerieTimms.com. I am a coach and a mentor. I do real estate sales coaching, real estate business mentoring as well. I also am very passionate about business owners because I've been one, I've done the hard yards. So I'm also doing business coaching and mentoring and solopreneur mentoring. So yeah, that person in the solo entrepreneur business, I think, that's just so important too. And that's a tough journey, in any business, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you're a performing real estate agent, whether you're a business owner, whether it's, real estate or any other business, it's lonely at the top. And I think you've just got to have someone in your court who is helping you, like who's on your side, who's your, who's cheering you on, who's questioning you about, are you doing what you need to be doing? Are you mastering your efficiency? Do you have a realistic goal? Are you looking after yourself? All of those things.
Do you need to pull your head in? I spend a lot of time sorting that out where people go, appreciate that, but how's that serving you? They go, what do you mean? I go, what you just said to me then was just, that's not the person I know. Well, what happened to you? Sometimes you've just got to pull your head in.
That is 100% true. And part of my book is about how I could have done with someone like me, mentoring me back in the beginning. So it's kind of like that full circle moment. I want to be mentoring people who were maybe like me back in the beginning because, I had various people, but I never really truly aligned with coaches until I started probably 5 years into my Timms journey. I had people like yourself who I looked up to and people who I mentored from, but not anyone who was actually coaching me and driving me to really take control of my business and just be better and be a better person, be a better, human being. So yeah, very passionate about business. I also have a business group, which is currently Adelaide based, called the EV, which is a spin on your electric vehicle that you need to plug in and charge up. It's the Entrepreneur's Voice. And thank you for the voice part of it, Lee. I was going to call it the Entrepreneur's Vault, but Entrepreneur's Voice is working particularly well. And that is, small, bespoke, collaborative lunch groups where, business owners from all industries are able to come together and in a confidential situation really discuss their business, and I facilitate that and help we come up with solutions. So there's also my speaking side of things. I've done a number of speaking gigs over the years. My most recent one was for you, Lee, at your Complete Leaders Conference. I did the Grow to Sell talk, and that was a lot of fun. Thank you. But yeah, I've spoken for the Lang Simmons Group. I've spoken with Sherry Storer, Tanja Lee, realestate.com, and the Real Estate Institute in South Australia. So I love speaking. and I love connecting with a room of people. I find it really fun. What else can I tell you, Lee? There's
The big one that I think a lot of people will be interested in, well, there's two. When's the book coming out, Roller Coaster?
I believe it's close to being finished and I just need to have it edited. So if we kind of projected to give me a good realistic target, Lee, we're projected by the middle of the year. Let's say by June, July, the book is actually ready to be released. If I can get it done earlier than that, I certainly will.
And then the other part that you're doing that I think a lot of our listeners would be interested in is you're going to actually run some retreats. Take us into that.
Yes. Well, I'm all about mind, body, soul. And in the last 10 years, I've spent a lot of time kind of piecing myself back together. I've met some incredible healers, people in those healing modalities, mindset coaches, quantum healers. There's a whole bunch of stuff I've invested in over the last 10 years that has certainly helped me get to the person that I am today. And I really believe that a lot of people in high performance roles, whether it's business or sales, don't really take the time to look after themselves. And I think sometimes we need to extract ourselves from our everyday, get away, get your feet in the grass, your toes in the sand, be pampered for a couple of days and really have a complete reset on your life. I think that can be actually life-changing. So, and this will be later in the year too, Lee, is retreats for groups of 8 in a bespoke environment. Currently in Adelaide, who knows what might happen in 2028. Yeah, exactly. So that is also, and that is the ER, the executive retreat. And the spin on that, of course, is come to one of the ERs before you end up in the ER, the emergency room. So that's the spin there.
Well, Valerie Timms, an absolute extended, wonderful, in-depth podcast today, which I knew we were going to get the depth from you due to your time, effort, life experience, but also your ability to be vulnerable, share your stories. Absolutely ecstatic. You're coming into the speaking, coaching, mentoring world. We need you. And for everyone listening to this, your link to your website is in our show notes, and they can, if they need to reach out to you directly, Val, how are they best to do that?
Yes, so valerietimms.com.au.
Wonderful. Valerie Timms, a fantastic podcast. Thank you for joining us on We Are Selling.
Thank you, Lee. You're a legend.